good afternoon, depending on your time zone. My name is Bruce Belzowski. I'm the Managing Director of the Automotive Futures Group here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I want to show you a little bit about tell you a little bit about our group, and as part of the intro for this conference, which of course we are in the fourth session of the Mexico's Manufacturing Supply Chain Summit, and we're going to be focusing on Mexico's automotive industry outlook for 2020. As I said, I'm from the Managing Director of the Automotive Futures Group I'm retired from the University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute. The group that I'm working with right now, that I'm the Managing Director of, we focus on three major areas in terms of our research: globalization, powertrains, and intelligent transportation systems, as well as IT within the automotive industry. We have an affiliate program and 5 conferences a year. This is the reason I'm here today is to moderate this panel of experts on the Mexican automotive industry. And the reason I'm here is our focus on globalization, because Mexico is one of the U.S. major trading partners. I want to start today by introducing our panelists. Our first panelist is Oscar Albin from the Suppliers Association. Good morning, or hello, Oscar.
Hello, Bruce. Thank you. It is a pleasure for me to be here one more time with Mexico Industries, Mexico Now, and this excellent group of panelists. I'm very happy. Let me just let you know that today I am what is INA all about? Well, we represent that INA is the National Auto Part Association that represent with the federal government, with the states, with the higher education institutions, all the Mexican auto part manufacturer locations. And we have a very good communication with many auto parts and other automotive associations. As I mentioned before, we represent almost 1,500 manufacturing locations. 600 of them are tier 1s, 900 are tier 2s, 3, whatever, located and manufacturing, as I said before, in all Mexican country. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you, Oscar. Our other panelist is Guillermo Rosales from the Dealers Association. Welcome, Guillermo.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you this day. Let me show. Many thanks to Mexico Now for the invitation. AMDA represents more than 2,000 vehicle dealers in 210 cities in Mexico, more than 40 brands in the automotive market, and 136,000 employees in the automotive distribution sector. I hope to share useful information through this conversation. Thank you, Bruce, again.
Thank you, Guillermo. And our last speaker is Guido Viadoso from IHS Markit. Welcome, Guido.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Bruce. Hello to my fellow panelists here today. Delighted to join you guys, and let me walk you a little bit through what we have from an IHS perspective. To those of you that have not seen us before, we are a critical information and insight company, and basically looking at all of these different critical industries around the world. Anything ranging from raw materials coming in on the energy side, price and purchasing, chemicals, then moving over to transportation, where we look at maritime, and in my particular case, automotive, and try to connect all of these different industries around the world. We have over 50,000 customers in over 140 different countries. 80% of our 80% of the Fortune Global 500. We had a little over $4 billion in revenue last year, and 94 of the 100 largest U.S. companies are our clients. When you start looking at IHS Markit from an automotive perspective, there's really no one that has the bandwidth that we have. We cover essentially all of the OEMs and medium heavy manufacturers, really the larger part of suppliers. And this is really done through several different services, starting with the future planning, which is the group that I belong to, ranging all the way down to what happens to a car after it's sold, once it hits the park, once it hits a vehicle park, replacement parts, and so on and so forth. So look forward to this interactive conversation today, and back to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Guido. For our discussion today, we're opening this discussion up to our, it'll be among our panelists, but also anyone who's viewing the video right now. And they're in the Q&A section of your Zoom program. Down at the bottom, there's a Q&A button there. You can press that button and ask questions. And we'll be able to get to some of those over the next hour. So when we look at what's going on in terms of the future, what's going on currently and what's going on in the near-term future, here we're looking at 2020 to 2025. One of our first questions has to do with what are the main challenges in Mexico's automotive industry? Oscar, what do you see as some of the main challenges today? You have to turn off your
Yeah. Sorry.
There you go.
Thank you so much. Well, we have different challenges right now. We are coming from a complete shutdown, but the comeback of the industry, especially in the United States, with a very high volumes, are giving us the opportunity to really come back in a very good manner. Right now, we are running 95% of our traditional or normal capacity in the most of our plants. And the main challenge that we have, I have to tell you, it is right now the cash. Because we are coming from months that we didn't invoice anyone, that is tier 3s to tier 2s, tier 2s to tier 1s, and tier 1s to the OEMs. It was no invoicing during a 3 or 4 months of period time. And that is giving us right now the consequence that we are not receiving payments, but we have to pay for the raw material in order to reactivate and accomplish the main volumes. Let me tell you right now that hold a second. Right now, as you can see here in this chart, the green bars are 2019 volume of production in Mexico, and the gray bars are 2020. You could see that the second semester, that is July, August, September, October, November, December, are very, very similar than the last year. So we are, as I said, running very well. In total year, we are going to have a decrease of 22%. Now, what is the scenario? What are the challenges that we have to keep that trend for the next 12 months? That is, that US is going to sell 16 vehicles versus 14 that could be. Well, is to have a COVID control. Those are as a challenge. Keep OEMs incentives for buying a new car. That's another challenge for the OEMs. Grow on the index for construction new homes in the United States. keep federal government tax incentive, and finally, to have a very transparent and clear result on the next presidential elections in the United States. I believe those are non-manufacturing, non-automotive, really challenges that we have to keep those under control. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. Thank you, Oscar. Guillermo, when you're looking at the current situation, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing the Mexican automotive industry?
Thank you, Bruce. The main challenge is to recover the growth capacity in the Mexican economy. It's important to mention it that the effect of this crisis by COVID. And then it's important to recover investor confidence, to create jobs and recover consumption capacity. In the last year, it's very important to see the effect in the data, in the new light vehicle sales. Current data for the last 9 months showed us that sales are 30% below last year. This means a loss of almost 300,000 vehicles during this period. By segment, it can be observed that all segments have been impacted by COVID-19 crisis, mainly subcompacts, so SUVs and compact vehicles, which represent an important share of the total market.
Thank you. Thank you, Guillermo. Guido, when you're looking at the current situation, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges facing the industry?
We're very much in line with what both Ingeniero Alvin and Ingeniero Rosales had to say, and just presenting it from our particular perspective and with our numbers. If you start to think about what happened or what will happen this year from an overall global volume perspective, we've lost about 18 million units, particularly during the second quarter of the year. And as Ingeniero Alvin was rightfully pointing out, that has generated a liquidity issue. So needless to say, you weren't building starting March 25th all the way out to the 18th of May. If we start to look more, medium term at what the situation is, we obviously have another challenge when it comes to Mexico, and this is Mexico in particular, which is that of all stock capacity that we have coming into the pipeline. We have ramped up for roughly about 6 million units of production, and chances are we may remain between 3 and 3.5 million units of production for the next years at least, which obviously creates an issue. Now, this is obviously full-time capacity. It doesn't necessarily mean straight-time capacity, which is really the benchmark. But nonetheless, it really presents two separate issues. Number one, liquidity as a result of the absence of sales that we had during the second quarter, and looking at 21, 22, and 23, we're going to have a capacity issue, and certainly if we can't restart volumes very quickly here, many OEMs are going to be revising their production footprints around the world as they start to make up for some of the cash during the second.
Thank you, Guido. Well, when so there's issues related to what's going on in terms of reduction in sales and production. When you look at what's going to be happening in the near-term future, let's look out a little farther, Oscar, to the 2025 timeframe. How do you see the Mexican and the North American automotive industry recovering?
Thank you, Bruce. Yes, as Guido, I'm sure he's going to mention, the hole that we have for production in the last 4 months, that is not going to be recovered. That is we believe that it's going to take us 3-4 years to back to the 2019 or 18 condition. Let me show you. Here is the volumes for passenger car vehicles production for the next 5, 7, 6 years. And as you could see, 2020 is going to be less than 3 million. And potentially we are going to be recovering near of 4 million that we used to have, maybe 2025, 2026. So we have to be patient, but we are, I believe, in a very good position to keep the production between 3 million and 4 million vehicles in the next 5 years for each year. So that is our forecast. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Oscar. Guillermo, from a dealership perspective, when you're looking at what's going on in currently and expect to look at to the future, how optimistic are your dealers?
Thanks, Ross. The slowdown trend we notice in the market is clearly shown in the next slide. If we compare how increase of sales month by month has been filing, as pointed by the arrow. From a recovery of 20,000 units in June to 700 additional units in September. This trend is pointing out a slow advance for the rest of the year, which can be also explained as the economic situation of several households remain with uncertainty and disrupts about purchasing durable goods, specifically new vehicles in the next years. And then in 2020, we are expecting annual sales below 1 million units, more or less 50,000 units. This will represent a decrease of 28% from 2019 and 26 below our pre-COVID estimation. This will position our market in levels seen during 2011-2012, almost a decade ago. And the perspective of recovery is uncertain yet, but it will clearly be a slow recovery process. I think that more or less toward 12-24 to recover the level of sales pre-COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Guillermo. Guido, you saw the slides that you saw the slides that Guillermo was showing about the recovery. How is the Mexican recovery in sales comparing to U.S. In terms of their recovery?
That's a great point, Bruce. And you know, it's when we start to look at U.S. light vehicle sales and compare them against Mexican light vehicle sales, U.S. light vehicle sales are likely going to take a 18% contraction, 15 to 18% contraction this year, somewhere between 4.2 and 4.5 million units. The good news is we have been adjusting over the last few months. You know, whereas we were downgrading the forecast throughout the month of March, April, and May, to basically look at going from a 17 million unit market last year towards 13, which is really a direct translation of what the economic indicators were signaling to. The incentives that we are seeing, and then of course the fact that consumers would rather not have to use public transportation and are rushing out to buy vehicles, have allowed us to revise our forecast up since the month of May. And in the case of the US, to the tune of a little over 1 million units. So what you have in front of you here is our September forecast. And as mentioned before, we're even revising that further as a result of the little over 16 million units that were sold in September. And that will be published in our October forecast. I also want to bring in this is a great moment to bring in the medical aspects to all of this. In order to understand what is happening from a macro or a consumption standpoint, we also need to understand when are we going to start seeing consumers head back into showrooms. And a lot of this will really depend upon what the availability of the vaccine is going to look like. From our particular perspective, IHS Markit doesn't believe that a mass distribution of the vaccine won't happen until the second half of 2021. As a result, we'll be restrained realistically until 2022, when the consumers are going back to business as usual, and then we are normalized finally in 2003. So you can see that clearly reflected here in the recovery trajectory that we anticipate for the next few years. But also relevant is the fact that in this cycle, we anticipate that light trucks are actually going to recover, and that we're basically done with where we're at from a passenger car standpoint. And this is very relevant because when you transfer over to production, Mexico has a significant take rate of passenger car production as a whole. So this has a direct impact to Mexican production, which is why we keep that forecast contained below 3.5 million units over the next 3 years. And it's very much in line with what Ingeniero Alvin was saying before. It's not a situation where there's a ongoing damage. No, we're basically building them. Our inventories are currently at 49 days, and it's going to take us at least until the second quarter of next year before we begin to see some degree of normalization towards 60 days.
Guido, some companies have been complaining or been showing a lack of inventory. What's the cause of that? I think it's particularly in the U.S. I don't know if it applies to Mexico as well.
So it's an issue really for the world, Bruce. If we look at North America build, and North America build accounts for over 2/3 of North America sales, we do know for a fact that we were closed for exactly 7 weeks. 7 weeks translates into 49 days. If you think about the fact that we had about 68 days of inventory when we stepped into this, we thinned down all of the inventories as we were going through this. So that's really the constraint that we're looking at, is trying to play catch up. Now, obviously, you're not seeing it in similar fashion for all vehicles. Passenger cars, we still have some inventories of passenger cars. But once you start to look at some of the hot trims, particularly when it comes to the retail business, because fleet isn't business as usual right now with what is happening from a rental car company, the retail is hot, and we just don't have enough inventory.
Mm-hmm. Does it have anything to do with the supply chain?
So it's not necessarily supply chain. We're building, as Ingeniero Alvin clearly pointed out, we're building at a similar clip to what we built in 2019. So we're running on 2 shifts for the products that we need. And it's not that the suppliers can't get the product. We haven't seen a closure of a plant, whether it's suppliers or OEMs, last more than 2 days as a result of any spread of COVID, since we have restarted operations really since the 3rd week of May. So we are handling this as best as we can. It's just we're selling at a faster pace than we thought we would for the segments that are selling well.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Guillermo, one of the issues related to sales has to do with the movement of many buyers to online purchases. Has your industry or your group been able to help dealers make that transition? And is it really happening in Mexico? I think it's definitely happening in the U.S. Is that happening in Mexico as well?
Yes, Bruce. COVID-19 is an opportunity to the jump to the new reality. We saw in April a lot of sales of vehicles that when the showrooms are closed, was closed, the sales continued. Why? Because the dealers and the consumers assimilate the new reality using the tools of online. It's the jump definitely in the new reality to the Mexican market. I think that without COVID-19, more or less the same level of use of online, maybe we will see toward 2025. 5 years, it's the gain to the decreases in the new reality to the new tools online, Bruce.
Has it been, have the dealers adjusted to this process?
Yes, the dealers is ready and the consumer is ready to the new reality. It's incredible that the jump on the Mexican market to we saw April, March, and today.
It's a big change, isn't it?
Yes.
It's true for the U.S. Dealerships as well. The U.S. dealerships, it's always been a face-to-face type of transaction, and with COVID-19, the dealerships had begun. They've been working online inventory. They've had online inventory for a while, but in terms of the sales process, has never really been a totally online transaction. Do you see, have your dealers been able to make it even a completely online transaction?
No, completely. The close of the deal is needs to the contact, to personal contact between the seller and the consumer. But the process online is very clearly to the present.
Very good, thank you.
More or less 19 sales of vehicles in Mexico today has a preview process online to the end visit of the dealers.
Very good, thank you. Oscar, from a supplier standpoint, how's the Mexican government been in its support for the supply chain from your perspective?
Bruce. Mexican government is just let us go, but we don't have really any kind of support or tax incentives or any like that. Let me tell you how we feel and what we are. Right now, we have a big opportunity to increase the auto part manufacturing in Mexico because we have a new rules of origin in the USMCA that we will talk. We have the increase on trade war between United States and some other countries. And I'm sure United States and Canadian companies will continue looking for better options on cost reductions. So Mexico, it's a great place to get that opportunity and those on those points. But what we need to materialize those opportunities, we have a country competitiveness, energy cost. The energy in Mexico is almost the double cost than the south of the United States. We don't want illegal strikes. We need that some tax incentives like some states in the United States have, and obviously security for everyone. Talking about promotion, we have to reinstall what I used to do ProMexico organization for us in the most of the important countries that provide foreign direct investment, and better technical education. What, at minimum, those things we are expecting to receive from the Mexican government to continue having a very good green field for everybody in the automotive business. Are we getting that? We are working with the federal government that they have to understand that these are the minimum things that we need to continue growing. If we don't have it, it's going to be more difficult to really get a new spike like we used to have in the last 5 years in the manufacturing of cars, auto parts, and trucks.
Well, thank you very much, Oscar. I think you brought up the USMCA story, right? And we really can't talk about the future of the Mexican auto industry unless we're talking about the changes that are occurring because of USMCA. What have you seen as some of the major positives and challenges for the Mexican auto industry?
Well, let me tell you, the Mexican new USMCA, the new USMCA first bring some certainty of the business for the next future. We were like for 2-3 years without knowing that if Mexico will continue to have free access to the our auto parts into the United States. So that it was a big concern. Now, we already know that everything is in place. Now, there are many opportunities. That is, we have a new trade that force the cars companies. Let me see. If everybody remember that is in NAFTA 1, it was very simple to achieve the rule of origin. It was just 62.5% for the passenger cars. Today, it's very complicated for the OEMs. They have to achieve 75%, 70% of steel and aluminum, 40% of cost salary for $16 per hour, that is United States or Canada. But the most important is to incorporate all the NAFTA core parts, that is engine, transmissions, shafts, axles, body panels, chassis, and steering column, steering system, suspension system, and lithium batteries. So there is too many rules that they have to do. And one opportunity that we have is that all our core parts, principal parts, and complementary parts also has to increase from 60% that is today to 75%. So also is an opportunity for tier 2s and tier 3s to supply components. But these new rule of origins are not going to come from one day to another one. We have some period of time that is like 3-4 years, and this is going to be little by little. But definitely, it's a great opportunity for all the automotive sector in North America. I'm sure we move from to have, if everybody remember, to have a wall between United States and Mexico. Now that wall is on the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean for goods. So now we are going to move factories from Asia and Europe into North America. Not precisely Mexico, also coming to United States. That's great because we sell cars to United States. We are selling very few to Europe or or Asia. So if they are going to be more workers in North America, welcome. They are going to buy Mexican goods.
So Oscar, do you think that there will actually be more investment in Mexico because of the transition from the 62.5 to 75%?
Yes, definitely. But as I mentioned, this is not going to be immediately. That is we have in the USMCA, it was a transition period, but also a transition period car by car or factory by factory. That is, no one is going to change a component that is currently manufactured at Europe, and now because USMCA, they have to move all the manufacturing process into United States or Mexico or Canada. That is not going to happen until the next model is going to be built. So if the new model, for example, the BMW that is manufactured in San Luis Potosí, is importing the seatbelt from Poland, they are going to continue doing that because there is no resources to remanufacturing and reapprove another assembly line for the seatbelt. So they are going to continue importing, but the new BMW sedan or van produced in that plant, for sure is going to have a seatbelt produced in North America. That is the example. So we have to be patient that all that investment is going to come, and it's going to come based on the new models replacement process.
Now, Oscar, when we talk about the USMCA, we can't ignore the $16 per hour wage issue. That is part of the new USMCA. Now, when I give my presentations, I go back to pre-USMCA and during NAFTA, that where 40% of the components that were being sent to Mexico as part of the supply chain were pretty much already representing that $16 an hour wage, because it was being the part was being moved from Canada to US to Mexico, maybe even back to the US, or maybe even back to Canada. You know, this parts tourism story about how parts would move around, and that it was always, even at that time, meeting that goal of $16 per hour, if depending on where you saw the component being built. How do you see that playing out now?
Yeah, it is quite as you very well described, quite complex for the OEMs to track it, not to achieve it. Is complex on how to demonstrate the percentage. First, I have to say that the 40% in passenger cars and 45% on pickups is only 25 and 30% on raw material, including transportation costs. It's just 25%. And the other 15% could be achieved with research and development expenses, and another 5% could be granted if the OEM has some manufacturing of engines. So as you very well mentioned, this fifth now is talking about 55 and 30%, because 40% sounds too much. But currently the OEMs in Mexico are importing directly from their headquarters many components that they produce over there. So, and in addition of that, they are importing from tier one suppliers in the United States, but right, the Mexican tier ones that are supplying components to the OEM in Mexico also are importing raw material from the United States, as you very well mentioned. An example of that is a seat. A seat is being sold to the OEM in $1,000 per set, but that $1,000 invoiced from a Mexican factory that has $4 per hour is importing fabric from South Carolina for a value of $100, and that South Carolina factory paying more than $16 per hour. So the OEM is going to be able to catch that $100 content in that 25%. That is why I'm telling you that to achieve this number is not a problem, is not a challenge, it's already there. The problem is going to be tracking those documents and facilitate the OEM to really demonstrate the content is going to be the challenge.
Thank you, Oscar. It reminds me of how this is something that the companies were already doing, right? Because they had that lower level, they had the 62.5% that they were already tracking. So it's not like they have to design completely new systems to do tracking. This tracking process has already been in place. It's really just adjusting it to meet the different demands. Am I correct in thinking that way?
Yes, Bruce, but you have to change a lot of some in your software and add some information that you didn't know it or need it, like the cost of labor of your supplier of fabric. Now you have to be included. And now is the U.S. fabric manufacturing is going to be able to pass you the cost of the labor to the tier one? I don't know. Those kind of things, that is going to be some of the questionables that we are working as we speak with the authorities in the United States and Mexico.
Okay, thank you. The other issue having to do with USMCA in terms of had to deal with importing anything from either from Asia or from the EU or from South America for that matter, and it had to do with how that was going to be counted, because the story was that some suppliers or some manufacturers were bringing stuff from outside of North America and having it count towards North American content. One of the things the USMCA was supposed to try to do was to keep that from happening. You see, are there things in place to keep that from happening now, Oscar?
Yes, definitely. You mentioned something that is happening today, this week, as we speak.
Right.
United States is imposing some kind of review of the content of steel tubes. We produce in Mexico steel tubes for the shock absorbers manufactured in the United States, for the steering columns, for the seat frames. They are like 5 or 6 factories in Mexico producing steel tubes for those components. Now, United States is asking to review if we are not importing Chinese or Korean or Brazilian or Turkish steel to be changed into tube. And because if that is the case, they are going to impose the 25% on taxes, that duties that they have. So it's kind of surprises, but it's okay, it's good. That is, as I mentioned, we have to develop and to have a preference for tier 2s, that in this case is, or tier 3s, in this case, is the steel mills in North America to provide to the tubes manufacturer that they are going to provide the shock absorbers. So it's really a tier 3 that is tracking that the steel must be from North America.
Right.
Now we are on the problem right now that we have on hold all those products because we cannot jump the border until all the custom approved is accomplished. So right now, and this example are coming many ones because there are going to be many new ones that we didn't know exactly what the little letter on the contract that we have is saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is true, Bruce. And we are surviving and we are fighting right now many of those little things.
Thank you. Thank you. Guido, when you look at USMCA, how are you seeing this playing out within the Mexican auto industry?
We don't necessarily, and we're very much in line with what Ingeniero Alvin has just pointed out, to the fact that we don't necessarily see a challenge from a labor standpoint. We've tracked, and this is the average, of course, over the last few years, the average take rate for U.S. components on a vehicle built in North America has been somewhere between 35 to 38%. Which leaves us very close to the 40% $16 labor requirement, because most plants in the U.S. would really put us above, well north actually of $16 an hour. So that's certainly not a challenge. Obviously, the way the law is stipulated, it tends to favor the build of light trucks in the U.S. As it pushes it up to 45. But nonetheless, we don't see that as being a major challenge. There's a cost perspective that is also tied to this. And, pre-COVID, we anticipated that the average cost of a vehicle was going to go up somewhere between 4 to 7%. By the time we hit the 75% regional content. But we knew very well that the OEMs were probably only going to pass 1 to 2% of that 4 to 7% over to the consumer. So that really means that, where the other remaining part is absorbed, whether it's the OEM or the supplier, I leave that up to you guys, but someone's going to have to pay for it, and it's going to be the industry. It's not going to be the end consumer. So obviously that puts pressure, but I'm in total agreement with Ingeniero Alvin in the fact that this presents an opportunity, and we'll have to see who moves quickly in order to secure this incremental regional content that we're going to see within the U.S. Mexico has been sedimentary when it comes to this. It's interesting to always compare that the average attraction package for a state down south, and this is for an automotive plant, is well north of $1 billion. Whereas, if you look at the packages that were set up for the most of the plants that came into Mexico, they were between $200 and $300 million. So really, from an incentive standpoint, the southern states in the U.S. Are very aggressive when it comes to incentives, and Mexico has its work cut out for them, and particularly now that we don't have ProMexico, which was the investment attraction office, this is certainly going to be a challenge.
Very interesting. When you see the challenges that are playing out because of USMCA, do you find that the Mexican suppliers that are there now are able to compete equally compared to U.S. suppliers?
When you refer to Mexican suppliers, you mean Mexican-owned suppliers or suppliers that are down in Mexico?
Both. Okay.
So from suppliers that are from Mexico historically, and you think about Nemak, Metalsa, Racini, and so on and so forth, those are global players. They're tier ones. So they have muscle, and they're some of the most dynamic companies and sharpest companies we have had the privilege of working with. So I don't think that's going to be a challenge. It's going to be the same logistics nightmare as it would be for Bosch, as it would be for Nemak. There's no difference right there. Now, in regards to what we're going to see from a tier one trying to determine where to build the component, what we were seeing before is probably going to hold true. We are probably going to be closer to where the vehicle is actually built, rather than have components travel all of this distance, because the savings in low-cost location are less relevant, particularly as we move towards vehicles that feature a lot more technology like EVs and AVs. And obviously, who starts to build these first? And we're seeing some of the startup momentum with Rivian, Tesla, and so on and so forth, be particularly aggressive in the US. That's probably where we may see that next step of movement come into place.
Okay, very interesting. Now you talked about the differences in pricing for how increases in prices, some of which will have to get absorbed by the supply chain, others by the consumers. Of course, this is on a manufacturer by manufacturer basis, right? How they're that'll be part of their strategy. How are they going to profit from this, and how are they going to distribute it, the profit, and how much are they going to charge consumers versus their supply chain? It's on the consumer. It's on a manufacturer by manufacturer basis. Now, this also applies to, I guess, more on a national basis. When you look at the new Japanese manufacturers that have come into Mexico, and the Korean suppliers. Now, the Germans have been there for a long time, but they're also building new plants in Mexico. Is the USMCA having a differing effect on the different nationalities of the manufacturers, the more recent ones that are entering Mexico versus the ones that have been there for a while?
That's a great question, Bruce. And in some cases, you may be better off paying off the duty. It's 2.5% if it's a passenger car. And SUVs technically would be coming in under passenger cars. So it really allows you a lot of flexibility when it comes to all of this. By that same token, it also means that you preferably want to build pickups and vans in the US so that you take that pressure off. Because if you don't hit that 75% building it in Mexico, or say Canada, because it's not only Mexico, then you're really stuck with the chicken tax, which is 25%, and that's when you lose all competitiveness. So we wouldn't be surprised if some of the OEMs suddenly decide to say, hey, we're happy with where we're at, 62.5. We're not going to invest $250 million or $400 million on an engine and transmission plant.
Yeah.
We would rather pay the 2.5% of the products coming or going into the US. The only problem is some of those vehicles are in very price sensitive segments, subcompact and compact, which makes it painful. But in some cases, you may be better off just paying the duty.
Especially if they design their whole plant based on being able to import things from Japan or Korea or from Europe, and to do it duty free because there are no tariffs and because of the agreements that Mexico has with their countries, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Now, Guillermo, we're looking at this from the dealer perspective as well. From when you look at what's going on right now. What is the interest rate that people are paying for new vehicles in Mexico?
Thank you, Bruce. At now in Mexico, one of the important challenge for the Mexican market is that there is no banking crisis. COVID has caused unemployment of nearly 12 million people. And the recovery will be slow. Many consumers face problems to paying their bank's loans, and support programs have been scarce. Since the beginning of the crisis, the private sector requests fiscal support to maintain employment, but there was no positive response. Unfortunately, Mexico is the Latin America country with the least government participation in the economic recovery. Companies are working on their own in the crisis to be greater and take us longer to get out of it. And then in the Mexican people, it's they have problems to acquiring vehicles now. We expect that the competition in the Mexican market maintain high levels, greater than in a similar economies. Likewise, vehicle prices are lower than in any country of Latin America. but we have income and poverty problems. It's a great problem to increase the vehicle markets in Mexico, Ross.
Now, when we talk about dealerships in the US, we can't talk about just new car dealers and new car sales. We always talk about used sales as well as service. In the US, traditionally, this is where dealerships have actually made their money in used vehicles and service. Is that the case in Mexico as well?
Yes, bros. Used cars in Mexico is an opportunity in this crisis. In Mexican market are not data about the used market, but the only index that we have is the credit to acquired used cars. In the first months of this year, the credit to the acquired used cars down only 5%. That in the comparison with the new vehicles that down 28% is a clear signal that the used market is a goal to the dealers in Mexico in this crisis.
Yes, we always see this as an opportunity. You know, this is true for all dealerships, right? They're always looking for any kind of opportunity, and in this case, it's the used vehicle market in terms of survival. Would you agree with that?
The service, the aftermarket and used car is maybe the only solution to the dealers during this crisis, Bros.
Now, in the past, there's always been issues with the entry of used vehicles from the U.S. to Mexico, and it was always considered a negative in terms of new vehicle sales, because it was limiting new vehicle sales in Mexico. Could you see something like this as being reintroduced and actually bringing more used vehicles from the US into Mexico?
The problem it's present today, and it's incredible that Mexican government don't solution it. Never is that a good news that the legalization to the used cars from USA, but now in the worst crisis in the last century, the risk to a new decree for the government, for the Mexican government, to legal the used car from USA is unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of it's a dangerous situation in terms of you don't want to open up that door again, because I thought from my other experiences with Mexico Now and the conferences, they were saying that they had actually reduced those exports from the U.S. to Mexico significantly over the last probably 5 years or so. And you probably don't want to open that door again, right?
We maintain this situation. The legal imports from USA to Mexico, it's in a good level, but the risk at present is the illegal introduced to the Mexican market from USA used vehicles.
Mm-hmm. The illegal introduction is the problem, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, is the illegal stuff still a very strong point, or is that less now?
It's increased in this year, and I remember you that the next year in Mexico we will go to the vote to the Congress renew, and then for the politicians is an opportunity to sell them to the electors, and then the risk is very high.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Oscar, I want to go back to you. We want to talk a little bit more about the what are the opportunities for some suppliers in the Mexican automotive industry? Do you see some growth in the supply base? Are there particular areas of say tier 2, tier 3 where there are some good opportunities for suppliers to come to Mexico?
In Mexico, as a difference of a developed country, that we have a good size of tier 2s and tier 3s. We don't have a triangle, we have a diamond shape. When we have all the tier 1s that we really need in Mexico, we could build a car from bumper to bumper with auto parts made in Mexico, but those auto parts are importing too many components and raw material from mainly United States and Asia. So how are we going to grow this diamond shape into a triangle? It's going to be through the Mexican supplier linking, that is understanding who is available already in Mexico that could supply your tier 2 requirements, and also foreign direct investment, that is the tier 1s ask his current tier 2 supplier to come to Mexico. That is the big challenge that we have now. In order to do the second one is we have the opportunity through some different trade fairs that currently are complicated because this non-traveling and non-having a physical touch. So we are working right now in a non-touching basis, a virtual expo and V2B opportunities with meetings between tier 1s and tier 2 suppliers, tier 2s and tier 3s. This event is going to be next month, and we already have more than 100 companies, tier 1s, asking for different components. So that event is going to be the answer to how we can link a current Mexican supply base between one with the other one. That is going to be the aspect. What are the commodities that we are more requesting in Mexico? They are machining operation with CNC, I'm sorry, also forging, stamping, and tooling. And for those especially, we are going to have a good size of suppliers providing information to the tier 1s, where they are, and what are their capabilities. So definitely, it's a necessity to move from a diamond shape that I showed to a triangle. It's going to come, and it's going to be a reality, but it's going to take time.
Oscar, when you look at the future of the industry, when you start looking at autonomous vehicles and more electrification, are there any raw materials advantage or possibilities within Mexico that can be tapped into?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That is when we are talking about between a diesel gasoline cars moving to electrical cars, they are not going to be any change on only the powertrain. And the powertrain, but the rest of the cars, bodies, safeties, interior, everything is going to remain as it is. Now, what are the commodities that we are going to add more in electric vehicles than they are today? Obviously, the engine that has an extrusion for aluminum and a lot of copper. Mexico, we have we have a good factories of copper wire to produce electric motors. Now, another commodity that is going to grow in value is going to be the wiring harnesses, because now we are going to need more heavy wiring harnesses, because the volts, the power that we are going to be running is going to be more than 12 volts. It's going to be high tension in some cases. So there is going to be more wire requirements. And that is going to be a big opportunity for the Mexican wire manufacturing plants, because Mexico today, we are manufacturing 100% of all the wires, harnesses that is needed in the 60 million vehicles that we produce in North America. So definitely we are going to, obviously we are going to lose some commodities like die casting, like a forge, like all those engine components. But in compensation, we are going to grow on some other ones. So there is no, we have already factories producing those ones, and we are in a good faith to be in front of the change of the powertrain.
Oscar, is there any raw materials such as lithium, nickel, or I forgot the other material that they're using in the anodes?
Lithium, yeah.
Yeah. Is any of that available within Mexico?
There is a very questionable situation right now with the lithium. Used to be only one mine providing lithium to the world, that it was in China. But because all this boom of the electric vehicles and the lithium requirement, they had been discovered different mines in South America, in Bolivia, by the way, right, in Canada, and also in Mexico. We already know that we have a lithium mines. Obviously, they are not in production right now, but we already have that raw material available. Now, there is not only lithium what we need in the electric car. Also, all the electric cars needs a lot of extrusion of aluminum, because the vehicle has to be lighter, but also we need cooling of the batteries. Yeah. And the case of the batteries are also from aluminum. Aluminum, we have a very good die casters and extrusion companies in Mexico, but what we don't have is aluminum as a raw material. There is no Bautist mines in Mexico, but there are many aluminum production in Canada. So we believe that between Canada, US, and Mexico, we have 100% that we need to build a car, electric or engine or whatever. We are self enough to produce everything in North America. And that is the trend of the USMCA. Bring everything here, and as I mentioned, build a wall between Pacific and Atlantic America for Canada, US, and Mexico. That's the final challenge.
Very good. Thank you very much, Oscar. I think we're going to end it today with that statement, because I think it really does sum up some of the challenges as well as the opportunities that we see for the USMCA, for North America, for Mexico in the coming years. And so I think that I want to thank you, Oscar, for your insights. Guillermo, we want to thank you for your insights on the dealer situation. And Guido, I also want to thank you for your insights on the broader perspectives about what's going on in the industry overall. Also want to thank Mexico Now for having me do this presentation. I think this webinar really gave us some good insights into the current situation, but also what is the near-term future for the Mexican and the North American auto industry. Again, thank you very much. And I think with that, we're going to just sign off. Oh, Oscar, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I just invite everyone to that is on Mexico Now. There are some questions from the audience that we are going to be happy to answer it. That is just collect them, send them to us, and we are going to answer it. And you could send them back to the important Mexico Now audience. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Oscar. And Guillermo and Guido, thank you again. And with that, I think we're going to sign off for today. Take care.